Tonight, clashing comments over a ceasefire plan for Gaza. A proposal outlined by the U.S. called a non-starter by Israel.
It is extremely important also to continue to exert that pressure on Hamas.
As demonstrators in Tel Aviv push their government to follow through with the deal and bring hostages home. Canadian support on the ground in southern Brazil. The tools to create clean drinking water as illness now threatens flood-ravaged communities.
And entire neighborhoods were underwater for about 3 weeks.
Plus, celebrating Indigenous creators.
The values that I put into my brand all have to do with inclusivity.
Artists on the global stage sharing stories of survival, innovation, and pride.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. Israel has described a permanent ceasefire in Gaza as a non-starter, insisting the fighting won't stop until its conditions are met, including the elimination of Hamas. The comments from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu appear to undermine the proposed agreement set out yesterday by President Joe Biden. CTV's Jeremy Sharon leads us off tonight.
In Rafah today, a mix of hope and reservations about a newly proposed ceasefire deal. This proposal came late, but better late than never, says this man. The deal submitted by Israel, shared by U.S. President Joe Biden Friday, a three-stage plan that aims for the release of hostages, a full ceasefire, and an eventual reconstruction of the enclave.
It sets the stage for a political settlement that provides a better future for Israelis and Palestinians alike.
Canada has now endorsed the proposed plan. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called it an opportunity to end the suffering, calling on all parties to seize it. Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly said Canada fully supports the proposal, pushing for a path towards an irreversible two-state solution.
The Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister are right on the money when it comes to ending this horrific war that we are in. But the first and foremost condition is that Hamas lay down their weapons and release the hostages.
But Israel's ambassador to Canada is accusing Ottawa of misunderstanding the context around the deal.
Canada's position has been strong on Hamas, or what Hamas has no role in the future and so on. What we are saying today is that it is extremely important also to continue to exert that pressure on Hamas.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said today, conditions to end the war have not changed.
The notion that a permanent ceasefire will kick in without us destroying Hamas and freeing our hostages is a non-starter.
This as thousands gathered in Tel Aviv today for another massive rally, pressuring their government to strike a deal.
Tonight, the U.S., Qatar, and Egypt are urging both sides to finalize a peace plan, saying in a joint statement that this proposed deal brings the demands of all parties together. Heather?
Jeremy Sharon in Ottawa. The Israel-Hamas war has fueled tensions here at home for months. And in Toronto, new numbers show just how much hate has risen. And it's widespread. CTV's Kamal Karmali reports.
Graffiti, splattered paint, and violent threats against religious schools. Hate is running rampant in Canada's largest city.
It's alarming, quite frankly, to see that in Canada's largest and most diverse urban centre, hate-motivated crimes have risen,
stretching Toronto police to their limit.
The service expanded the size of the hate crime unit from 6 dedicated members to a team of 32.
Toronto police says 5 months into this year, it's already seen nearly 200 hate crimes. That's up more than 60% from this time last year, and nearly half of those so far are anti-Semitic. That's set to surpass 2023's numbers, which already reached a 10-year high, 365 reported hate crimes by the end of last year. Of those, more than a third were against the Jewish community. There was also an increase in hate against the 2S LGBTQI+, Black and Muslim communities compared to previous years.
So there is this fear, the sense of pain within the community, and we also know that only 1/3 of hate crimes actually are reported.
An arson attack Thursday outside a synagogue in Vancouver.
We don't light houses of worship on fire.
Where there was a surge in hate crimes last year.
And it is being investigated as a possible hate crime.
By more than 30%, while Ottawa noted a 20% increase, highlighting a rise in hate across the country. Toronto police blaming the war in Gaza as the driving force behind the surge in hate. And out of the 365 hate crimes in the city last year, fewer than 60 people were actually charged. Heather.
Staggering numbers, Como, thank you. We're getting a new perspective tonight of the catastrophic floods in southern Brazil. Nearly 500,000 people were driven from their homes. The risk now is not the rain, but rising cases of disease. CTV's Christina Tenalia on the Canadian organization stepping in to help.
Joyce Fouth Carrera returned home, wearing rubber gloves and waders, and an expression of shock and sadness. You see, all of your history go to waste, she says. Recent floodwaters climbed to her shoulders. After a month of flooding in southern Brazil, some residents are returning to water-damaged homes, while others are displaced.
The displacement has been absolutely huge in the region.
The risk to residents who remain is now not the deluge, but disease, as waterborne illness remains a top concern for health officials.
They don't have access to clean drinking water.
It's an urgent concern. So far, 7 people have died from leptospirosis, a disease caused by contaminated water. Another 10 suspected deaths are under investigation, with about 2,300 potential cases reported to health officials. Toronto-based aid organization Global Medic is on the ground.
We're installing portable water purification units in the shelters so that the people that are in those shelters have clean water and their kids don't get sick. And then, of course, because these are community centers, the people in the community that are going back home can now come there and get clean water as well.
People are getting sick by drinking the piped-in water. So we're installing this unit. The ones that we have right here behind me are our big water purification units.
Global Medic's team has 4 portable water purification units on site to provide clean drinking water to thousands daily, with the potential for clean water for about a year.
Often the impact of providing people clean drinking water, and I don't want to understate this, is it's the difference between life and death.
Global Medic is also sending kits that include ceramic water filters, solar lights, and hygiene items, not only to help families maintain reliable access to clean drinking water, but to give them a sense of normalcy. Heather.
Christina, thank you. The political party that freed South Africa from apartheid has suffered a major blow in the country's latest election, losing its 30-year majority. With almost all the votes now counted, the once dominant African National Congress received just over 40%. High unemployment rates, shortages of electricity and water, and soaring crime are being blamed for the poor results. The ANC, which rose to power under Nelson Mandela, now has 2 weeks to try to form a coalition with rival parties to remain in government. More than 500 million people had their personal information stolen in a massive data breach targeting Ticketmaster. Its parent company, Live Nation, confirmed it was hit by a cyber attack. The hackers, reportedly called Shiny Hunters, allegedly demanded a $680,000 ransom, threatening to sell people's data to the dark web. An internal investigation has been launched. Another disappointing day for Boeing and its highly anticipated Starliner, with the launch scrubbed less than 4 minutes before liftoff.
Hold. Flight control receive to CCLS, hold it.
The Starliner was ready for liftoff with a crew on board when the mission was automatically halted by the computer that launches the rocket. It's the latest in a string of technical setbacks to plague the vehicle. If the problem can be fixed, the Starliner could make another attempt tomorrow. What caused roughly 20 cars of a freight train to derail in Alberta is also under investigation. It happened this morning near Hinton, almost 300 kilometers west of Edmonton. Officials say no dangerous goods were on board, and there are no reports of injuries. The push to extinguish smoking for future generations is spreading further into Atlantic Canada. Newfoundland and Labrador has joined PEI in trying to ban young people from ever legally buying cigarettes in their entire lifetime. CTV's Garrett Barry reports.
No promises. Health officials here say they're just thinking about it, but the trial balloon is a big one. A system where some people who are young today may never be able to legally buy tobacco in Newfoundland and Labrador.
And at the end of the day, we may not make any changes, but this is a consultation process.
Advocates say this idea is picking up steam in PEI, officials now flirting with proposals to ban the sale of tobacco forever to anyone who is now under the age of 15.
It's being discussed internationally. After the election in the United Kingdom, it's going to come back because there's all party support there.
So far, cautious support from advocates in Newfoundland and Labrador who want to see public health push the ball forward and include vaping products.
In grades 10, 11, 12, high school, over 50% have tried, and maybe still using. So vaping is a very big concern.
Tobacco industry heavyweights promise they're on the same side, but complain they've been left out of the conversation on how to crack down on youth tobacco use and other harms. Critics like Cody say they're not buying it.
They found a new way to deliver nicotine.
They say vaping in pouches with their catchy advertisements, flavors, and even apps are just another way to market to young people.
If these restrictions, in some way, the industry can figure out a way to get round the limitations and still profit from their existing consumers, they may not be so quick to fight this legislation.
Industry insider Max Krangle spent years working as a lawyer for big tobacco firms. He says it's not clear how they might respond to these new cutoff proposals because despite years of public health attacks, they're quite okay financially. Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
A third person in the U.S. has tested positive for bird flu connected to an ongoing outbreak in dairy cattle. Concerns over a lack of surveillance in this country has led to the creation of the Pan-Canadian Milk Network by a group of scientists. CTV's Mike LeCouture explains.
When researchers on this side of the border saw an outbreak of H5N1 bird flu in American dairy cows, they wondered if Canadian officials were testing our milk. At that point, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency wasn't. So the group took matters into their own hands.
If you let time go by and you're slow to respond, these outbreaks can really mushroom pretty quickly, and then it's harder to put the genie back in the bottle.
The group, dubbed the Pan-Canadian Milk Network, tested 18 samples from 5 provinces. All came back negative for the virus. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency started to test in May. All 300 samples also came back negative. The health minister says officials will continue to monitor our dairy supply.
We are testing across the country regularly, both at the border and in spot checks before milk is put on the market. So we make sure that lactating bovine animals are being tested.
The group of researchers say, like the COVID-19 pandemic, it's important to test on multiple fronts, especially as the virus has been detected in nearly 70 herds across 9 U.S. states so far.
Wastewater surveillance can be very helpful. Testing commercial milk products can be very helpful. Screening cattle or people who are working in close contact with non-human animals can be very helpful as well.
Now, detecting fragments of the virus in milk at the store is so important because it's one indicator of health in Canadian cows.
To continue to reinforce that milk does not contain the virus is indirect evidence that the virus is not present in Canadian dairy herds.
It is worth noting all milk sold in Canada is pasteurized, and that process does kill the H5N1 virus. So the milk sold in your local store is safe to drink. Mike LeCouture, CTV News, Ottawa.
Legendary Quebec musician Jean-Pierre Ferland was honored today at a national funeral in Montreal. Furlan's wife performing one of her late husband's songs at the service, which was filled with music, also thanking him for their beautiful life journey. He was remembered as a genius of words and music. Furlan passed away in late April at age 89. Coming up, a new soaring success.
I think if we can grow our sports together, we'll be stronger.
The league's eyeing another goal for women's sport. Plus, the small leap that's a big milestone for an Ottawa mother. The growing appetite for women's sports has taken a giant leap forward. The booming success of the PWHL's first season has fans in a frenzy, with other new leagues ready to get in the game. Here's CTV's Alison Bamford.
Minnesota has won the first ever Walter Cup.
Not a moment, but a movement. The PWHL capping off its inaugural season with Minnesota on top.
We're the state of hockey, and I think that proves it.
Minnesota, the state of hockey, in a league making a statement for women's sports.
We've always believed in this dream. We've always had different naysayers around us that have continued to kind of set us back. And, you know, we've made it. We've arrived.
The PWHL coming off an incredible year one, showing the world women's hockey can fill arenas too, even catching the eyes of other major leagues.
It's been a great week and a great couple of months to be a fan of women's sport and a fan of sport.
Joining the momentum, women's pro soccer, with the recent announcement of the new NSL, Northern Super League, set to kick off next spring.
It gives a small little girl an ability to put her hand up when someone says, who's going to go play pro? And I think for a long time that didn't seem like an accessible option for young girls in the sport.
All this at a time when the WNBA plans to expand to Toronto, the wave of success giving hope to sports like football, with players still pushing for collegiate opportunities to help grow their game.
Though it's behind other sports, it's got a lot of room for growth and, you know, the ability to reach the potential that other sports have reached.
Potential that's measured through the success of all women's sports and achieved with teamwork.
I think if we can grow our sports together, we'll be stronger and we'll probably grow them a little bit faster.
Alison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
Still ahead. From the runway to the red carpet at the Indigenous Fashion Arts Festival. The creative works of more than 100 artists are on display in Toronto for the Indigenous Fashion Arts Festival. It explores the deep connections between mainstream fashion, art, and traditional practice. Here's CTV's Donna Sound with tonight's Indigenous Circle.
From the runway to the red carpet is the goal of the Indigenous Fashion Arts Festival, showcasing designers like Leslie Hampton, who has done just that for Lizzo, Lily Gladstone, Devery Jacobs, and Lainey Louie.
It's been really exciting to see the shift that the fashion industry has had towards Indigenous representation, towards size inclusivity.
The renowned Anishinaabe artist and designer from Temagami First Nation's newest collection is called Alkaline. Her contemporary fashions are sustainable, as clothing is one of the biggest contributors to environmental waste.
We also have a sense of sustainability within our work with supporting slow fashion. So we have low inventory numbers on hand to decrease wasteful overproduction, as well as we do custom work.
The four-day event not only showcases designers, but artisans from across Turtle Island, over 100 in all. It's the work of creative director and organizer Sage Paul to show the world that Indigenous fashion and art is second to none. This year's showcase is at the iconic Eaton Centre in Toronto.
Our team is primarily all Indigenous, so are bringing in so many skills from so many different nations, and we are really rooted in that love and care for our community, so we're able to hold each other up.
It's about representation and showing the world that Indigenous artists are taking their place in the world of fashion space.
Taking space, taking back space, and so it's not really a revitalization because we've always been here. It's us, it's like Indigenous people that are bubbling up and taking this space and holding it.
Fashion Resurgence workshops are also offered for creators to share their stories of survival, innovation, and pride.
To be able to showcase them in a major city like Toronto is so massive for Indigenous representation and the Indigenous economy as well.
The Indigenous Fashion Arts Festival goal is one that will bring these artists and their creations to the global stage on runways worldwide. Donna Sound, CTV News, Toronto.
After the break, a major step for an Ottawa woman defying the odds. We leave you tonight with the brave battle of a stroke survivor, told she would never walk again. Here's CTV's Caitlin Wilson on the remarkable journey of an Ottawa mom determined to reclaim her life against all odds.
I'm sorry I'm not ready, but we're doing this.
It's the little things in life,
2, 3.
like jumping off this dock for the first time in years, that show just how far Sophie LeBlond-Robert has come.
After 4 years of always relying on everybody, it feels good to be able to do something on my own.
A big milestone for the mom of two who is marking another first since her stroke in 2020.
There's been so many things that I've been able to just keep doing, and nobody was expecting.
It's that sense of determination that's helped her defy the odds all these years, after doctors told her she would likely never walk again.
I was completely paralyzed, and they thought that I would pretty much stay paralyzed.
Out of the blue, Sophie's life changed forever while she was gardening in her backyard.
I leaned back and lost full use of my legs.
She was rushed to the hospital and was diagnosed with a rare disorder called locked-in syndrome. Sophie was aware of her surroundings, but she couldn't move because her muscles were paralyzed.
I couldn't breathe, couldn't talk, couldn't do anything but blink my eyes.
After 6 months, she was released from hospital and has been beating the odds ever since.
She's always been such a high drive and willingness to do all this hard work, and it's paying off.
The former painter and interior designer completed her first painting this year.
Mon ami,
She's learning French again and walked 2 kilometers in the CN cycle for Chio last month. She's even learning to drive all over again.
Because I didn't give up, I did the test 4 times and finally passed. And so I got my G1, and now I'm ready to go to the next level.
And as she celebrates her 39th birthday, she's not done. With help from her team of therapists, she's determined to walk again in high heels.
If there's one thing I can get out there, it's the word of advice, and to just never give up.
Caitlin Wilson, CTV News.
In high heels, that's such determination. And that is our newscast for this Saturday night. I'm Heather Butts. Thank you for watching. Good night, and I'll see you again tomorrow.